Okay, let's go ahead and kick it off tonight. I hope you had a good time with Ryan. I hope you learned some lessons in Clerk in authentication, layering in some party integrations with Clerk, learning about the front end and back end integrations and how we have to do work on both of them. Just briefly touching on middleware a little bit. So we have two options for where we are headed tonight. But before I get into that, does anyone have any questions about the stuff that Ryan covered? Everyone good on that? Oh, just saw something in the chat. Nope. Any questions? Very nice show. Um, okay, Terry.
Yeah, it wasn't like a question for like with
Oh,
Ryan.
hold on. I can't hear you, but I don't think it's me.
I can hear him, but you might not be
Can
able
you
to
hear
hear
me
me.
now?
Oh, no, it is me.
All right, hang
There we
on.
go. Now I can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, my question was I saw that you like posted on Slack with this Luma festival. What is it?
Yeah, good question. So, that is totally optional. It has nothing to do with coding. Well, kind of has to do with coding, but not really. It is a light and projection festival down in Binghamton. We went to it last year. It's completely free to attend. And what they basically do is they set up these like $100,000 projectors, and they project on like 8 different buildings all around downtown Binghamton. And the light shows last for like 10-ish minutes roughly. And then they just run on a cycle. So you do have to wait for it to get dark out because the projection only works so well. But they like map out these really cool light shows on different buildings, and then have like music playing. And so basically you just like wander around downtown Binghamton, and they'll have like food vendors and a couple different stalls set up. But you basically just walk building to building and see the different light shows. And there are like 8 total. So what we would do, or what we did last year at least, is we left here. I want to say around 7:30. Takes roughly an hour to get down to Binghamton. It took us probably 2.5 hours to go walk around and like see all the different shows. We can stay together or we can break up, doesn't really matter. And then we drove back and we were back probably around midnight. Just a rough guess. So it does happen. It is they do it Friday and Saturday nights. So if you guys are interested in going, we can organize a carpool and take 1 or 2 cars down. I will throw the link in the chat if you guys are interested in attending. Again, this is nothing to do with coding. It's just kind of a cool art festival to participate in. And so if you're interested, go ahead and vote in the chat. And even if you aren't interested, go ahead and vote in the chat anyway, just so I know you guys saw it. At least there was an option for no in there. Um, so any questions on that? I'm glad you brought that up, Terry, because I would have completely forgotten otherwise.
Yeah, yeah. I never really like been to a festival before, so it's like I do want to go, so it'd be like a first time for me.
Cool. Yeah, they're a lot of fun, and it's kind of like if you've been to like Taste of Syracuse or anything like that downtown, where they have like all the different booths set up for food and ice cream and that kind of stuff. But it's a free festival to attend. Last year they had like one event that you had to pay for a ticket for, and it was a whopping $2, and it was this really cool like they had all of these speakers around in a tent, and then they had a projection screen at the end and like all of these LEDs on the side of it. And it was just really, really cool. So if you go on their website, um, they probably have lots of pictures of like last year's festival. And if I remember, I will post a picture from my phone of like being in the ticketed event, but really, really cool. Something that I will probably do every year. They do rotate them, so like this year's projections are completely different from last year's projections. But it's just a really cool festival to go check out. So if anyone's interested, go ahead and vote. Otherwise, no big deal if you don't want to attend. Okay. We have two options for tonight. I'm going to leave it up to you guys to decide. Whatever we don't do tonight, we will probably do next week. Two reminders for you other than the Luma Festival. We are off on Monday for Labor Day, so no class next Monday. I mean, you're welcome to show up if you want, but I won't be here. And the other reminder is we have a capstone check-in coming up next Thursday. So what's in that capstone checkup? What we basically want to see is your backend created. You've got a database table, whether you're using Sequelize or regular PG, either one is fine. Sequelize is encouraged. And you've got a full create and read update flow working. What do I mean by that? You've got some form in the front end. You can submit that form in the front end, and that will redirect you to a page that is going to your API, pulling the data from the database, and showing that data on your front end page. That is what is coming up next Thursday. So we want to create and a read flow working full stack from the front end to the back end to the database back to the back end to the front end, and showing that data. That's the goal that we are shooting for next Thursday. Now, if you're not completely there, that's totally okay. We want to see something. We want to see where you're at, and we want to still have you check in next Thursday so that I can give you some feedback or some idea of how to get started there. As always, one-on-ones are available. So if you feel like you're stuck, if you feel like you need a little boost getting started, if you just have a single question that you want to send to me in Slack, that's totally fine. But next Thursday, we will spend our check-in there. Any questions about the capstone check-in? Yes, Terry.
So pretty much all you want to see is just like us just set up like the databases and set up our tables essentially.
Database and table set up, and then a form in the front end that is creating a new record in the database, a new row in the database, and a section of the front end that is showing that data that just got created. So you can think about that as a user typed in a comment, and when they hit the comment button, the front end showed a list of all the comments that are in the database. Or you can think about that as I filled out a new item on my to-do list, and the to-do list is now showing that item. Or you can think about that as I just watered a plant. I want to be able to click the water button and have the page reflect that the last water time was at a certain point. Or I want to make it so I'm 50% of the way done a game, and so I'm going to click on an item as mark it as done, and that's taken care of. Hopefully that gives you an idea, right? Some user interaction in the front end that's going to add a row to the backend database, and then that page is going to reflect that that change has been up. That page or another page is going to reflect that something is done there. Okay, so where are we headed tonight? Well, I'm going to give you guys two options. I am going to suggest that we actually do an open work night to work on your capstones. That will give you an opportunity to get your backends created if you haven't yet. That will give you an opportunity to get your database set up if you haven't yet. That will give you an opportunity to create your endpoints and integrate it with the front end. If we do that tonight, because we are off on Monday, on Tuesday, we will circle back to the blog project. I'm going to show you guys how to upload a file and have it store in the database and still show on the page. That is, we will be working with picture files, but that will work really with any type of file. And we're also going to add commenting to the blog and make it so any signed in user can write a comment, and then how we would adjust our backend to allow unsigned in users to make a comment. So I am going to recommend that we finish the blog on Monday and use this class to finish up the week by giving you an opportunity to make some headway on your capstone, feeling pretty good about that check-in coming up on Thursday, and also giving you guys a head start to ask any questions you have about your capstone so that you can have a productive Labor Day weekend, actually ironically laboring on your capstone without getting roadblocked on any questions. Yes, Terry.
So should I just like wait until that Tuesday, since like my capstone was essentially I need to like upload images and like the comments.
So you could for sure. I would encourage everyone to at least get some backend set up. So having your tables created, having your Express server running, making sure your front end can pull some information from the database, even if it isn't, even if you enter it manually in Beekeeper, or even if you use, if you think about the blog project we did that, if there isn't an existing user, user.create, you could do something similar for your data, right? You could say, hey, if there isn't a character in the database, just create this one character so that I can make sure I can pull that data back on the front end and see that character information. So if you are most of the way done of a read update and all you have to do is a create with a form, on Thursday's check-in, I will give you a most of the way pass on that. But I don't want you to think, oh, I'm just going to wait until Tuesday and I'll do my back end then. I would still encourage you to go through most of the setup steps of getting the back end set up, connecting it to SQLize, making sure the database is working, getting a table created, inserting some dummy data into the table, and then making that dummy data show up in your front end somewhere. So, and Joe, if we do decide to do an open office, open work night, I'm happy to answer your GitHub desktop and get ignore questions. Otherwise, should either schedule a one-on-one or wait to ask that. The other option is to push this work night out until Tuesday or Wednesday of next week, and do creating comments tonight and file uploads tonight. So I'm going to leave that up to you guys unless you have any questions. Okay. Poll is live. First option is to do open work night. I will be around until 8:30. You can ask any questions on your capstone. The second option is to cover file uploads and comments tonight. Either one is totally fine with me, as long as you don't tie in the poll. Unfortunately, it looks like there are 9 of you, so hopefully you all vote. Okay, there's one of you that hasn't voted. Please do so now. Whew, okay. Split results. But it does look like you guys are leaning towards an open work night. The good news is file uploads and comments, we will be covering next week, right? We will be covering that on Tuesday. Because it was such a close vote, though, I am going to give you a sneak peek of what the file uploads will look like, because we covered them in cohort 5. So I'm going to drop a link in the chat for how we got the front end and back end to do file uploads. So if you would like to forge ahead and cover the stuff that we are going to cover on Tuesday, the link in the chat is what we will be covering on Tuesday with file uploads and comments. It does not cover data seeding. We will get to that next week. So feel free to reference that code. Otherwise, get a jump start on your Capstone backends, right? We want to see the Express server up and running. We want to see some data in your database, and we want to see some of that data being shown on the front end using React State. So that is the goal for tonight. does not have to be done tonight. But even if your question is, I'm stuck, where do I get started? That is a perfectly fine question to ask tonight. I'm going to start with Joe just because he claimed dibs on the first question. And then anyone else who has questions, no matter what stage you are at in your capstone, you feel free to raise your hand. Or, and I'm not encouraging this, but you can shoot me a Zoom or Slack message and we can go in a breakout room. I don't encourage that because I think a lot of people could benefit with the same questions that you have. But if you don't feel comfortable asking that question, you can ask to go into a breakout room and we will do that. With all of that said, Joe, go ahead with whatever problems you are having. And hopefully I don't go thermonuclear on your computer like Apple told you to do.
Well, good news is I don't think it's that big of an issue. I mean, it's not causing any problems. I think that there might be something that's not correct there.
Okay.
So go here. Oh, all right. Going into Capstone React, and no, I can go make this. All right. In here in my Capstone React folder, there's a git ignore in there, and no node modules. If I go into here and watch it not do it again, nope. Okay, it isn't there. Git ignore is in there. Node modules is grayed out. What is happening there? I went into GitHub desktop, and there's nothing in the ignore section. When I checked it, why is it pulling node modules down?
Because it's ignored.
Right, but I didn't install it again. I just pulled it down from the repository. I should have to reinstall it, right?
Correct. So you're telling me if you delete and reclone the repository.
Oh, let me try. Oh, you know what? Is it going off of what's in the local folder?
Yes.
I gotcha. Okay, so it's holding that file in the local folder, so I don't have to do that. How I see. Okay, that makes
So
more sense.
it's
Then.
Git is ignoring it, but when you npm install it, you still need to have that locally. So the reason why it doesn't show up in GitHub on the remote on github.com is because Git is ignoring it, but it still exists locally.
All right, let me just check in here. Just to make sure. Do I need to, when I installed this, I did this a little differently this time. Should I make a git ignore file for the backend?
You should.
Okay, because when I created the repository, I did it through GitHub desktop instead of like the way I was with dragging folders and stuff, and that didn't make a git
Yeah,
ignore file.
it's not a special file. It just starts with a period, and because it starts with a period, it won't show up in Finder, but it will show up in VS Code.
Is that right?
Yep. And then now it's there. You can commit it. And if you go back to that and npm install it,
I already closed out of it.
that's obviously going to recreate the node modules folder, but it's grayed out because it's in your git ignore. And if you go back to VS Code, that's not in your DB folder, is it? That's outside.
Yeah.
Okay, just looked weird for a second. Now if you go back to GitHub desktop, it will show you that there are no file changes because it's ignoring everything in Git modules.
Okay, well that would explain it then. I'm gonna get my stuff set up, and then I was gonna maybe walk through and make sure that I've
Doing
achieved
all
what
the
needs to
steps
be
for the
achieved.
Thursday check.
Yep.
Cool. No problem. Sounds good. Questions are now open to anyone else, and I really mean that tonight. Questions can be at any stage of the process. You could be thinking you are 10 minutes away from finishing your capstone, or you can think that you are 10 minutes into starting your capstone and are panicked with where you are at. It does not matter where you are at. Questions for tonight.
Yeah,
Let's
I'm
go
looking
ahead,
at
Terry.
oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm looking at the previous cohort code. I'm
Yep.
trying to see where did you like implement in the comment section that it was, is it inside DB?
Yeah, very good question. So let me do the back end part of it first, because that's going to be easier to find. So in blog backend in DB, you will see that don't worry about comment reply. That was like literally so we could do like Reddit style of replying on a comment, like a comment to a comment. But in comment alone, we do in DB, we set up this table type. So that's one file. Then on the other one, we modify server.js, which I think we called index.js, and we made it so you could post a comment right here. So that's number 2. And then number 3, if you look in the front end on read.js, we have a section down here that allows you to map over all of the comments to show the comments here, comment.content. And then we also made a little form here that says if there is a signed in user, show them a form that lets them type in the content and their author name. And when they submit the comment, go use the API post comment to the post comment from over here. So I'm going to how's the easiest way to do it? So it's comment.js. It is the server.post on line 161 of server.js. And then it is line 45 of read.js on the front end and line 90 of read.js on the front end and 103. Let me I will put that list backend db comment.js backend index.js. Joe, I don't think you can. You can try file new window, but I'm pretty sure GitHub Desktop actually has that limitation that you can't open multiple repos at the same time. And then front end.
Also on line 10 and comment.js with the content, does that need to be a text or can I do a string with that?
You can do a string, but you're going to limit users to under 255 characters. But if that's intentional, you can absolutely do a string. Okay. For comments, I did just put that in the chat of the 3 separate files, or 3 separate files and the line numbers for them. And those are rough. Like back end, I put 161, but obviously it goes down a couple lines there to make all of that work. Yeah, Joe, I don't think you can have multiple windows of GitHub Desktop open. One of the many reasons it annoys me and why I use Source Tree over GitHub Desktop.
I'm gonna download that now, but it's fine. I didn't delete my original file, so I have to look at them. Said source tree.
Yes, by Atlassian.
Nobody else is next in the queue. I got all my stuff set up.
Go for it. I will note that that has been a requested feature since 2017.
Microsoft owns Git.
GitHub. Git is still an open source.
Right. And GitHub Desktop is GitHub, so
Correct.
they should really get with it.
Haha.
So, I can dive into the rest of this and a second. Go into here. Is now pulling all still leads into here, but eventually it's going to pop out the correct info. But if I go into demographics, which is a really, really small version of this now, just to make sure that the form is working correctly.
Yep. Fun fact, I don't give anyone my true date of birth for security reasons. And you can't find it on the internet, even if you Google for me.
Do I expect to log in, which I'm going to change, but no, we'll next match is down here.
Beautiful. That is everything that I want to see for Thursday's check-in. Next Thursday's check-in.
Cool stuff.
Obviously, a lot more work to do than just that, but that is the baseline, and now we can start having more fun with relational data, with getting search working, with UI work, with more tables, with all of that stuff. So
yeah, this is a problem.
Yep.
Where it will just override. If I put something next to it, it's just going to cover the whole thing up. So I got to fix that. But just UI problems.
You can do like a dot substring if the length is over something, and then do 3 dots afterwards. I think we did that on post preview if you want to look at that code.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if it was it the substring or did you cut the lines off?
I did substring.
Okay. I'll take a look at it.
You can also fix that with CSS, but it's easier to do it in the JavaScript. Well, let me rephrase that. I know how to do it in the JavaScript and have done it that way. I know it is theoretically possible to do it in the CSS as well.
I don't want. I want to interact as little as possible with CSS. We are not friends.
Join the club. Go ahead and do attendance before I forget. The secret word for tonight is fan. Fan. That way, if it does come crashing down in the middle of the stream, I will know what night it was. And it's fine to have cameras off tonight, by the way.
I have a implementation question.
Shoot.
For the sake of this project, do you think? All right, let me back up. What is the finished state that you would like to see? Like, what's the baseline for requirements before I start looking at this?
So you've pretty much met the baseline. If you would like to do update and delete on top of that, that would be nice. Having authentication working would also be nice. Anything on top of that is totally above and beyond, right? So these capstones are meant to show that you can take things that you have seen in class and go do them on your own. Whether or not you do them only once to meet the bare minimum requirements, or you do them 100 times to get the practice of different models and forms and search working and understanding the full power of building a web app, is totally up to you, right? What we want to encourage you not to do is go over the deep end, add so much to it, and then realize that you broke it somewhere and not have something to demo at graduation in a couple weeks, right? So we don't want you to overscope and just keep on adding things and adding things and adding things and never fully finishing them. But in terms of a priority list for yourself, I would encourage you to prioritize them and use the remaining class time to be able to ask questions like, how would I go about implementing something like search? Or how do I upload a file and have those files show to the end user? Or, how do I manage user permissions to make sure that only the people assigned to them actually show up on their homepage? Or those kinds of use cases tend to be helpful if one person asks about search. It tends to help everyone out who has search in their project. So that's how I would kind of start thinking about it. It's less about the minimum requirements for graduation and more about what are the important things that I'm going to want to demo when I reach the graduation ceremony. Does that help?
Yes. So with that in mind, Um, admin and IT teams usually manage user authentication. So not I don't want to use I would, in the spirit of my project, prefer to go the route of already set up accounts or specific usernames, not sign in with or single sign-in kind of stuff. Would you recommend that for the project? Or Ryan and I talked about it a little bit. I don't know how in-depth setting that up would be. So like to connect it to my own database versus having Clerk Manager.
Yeah, so we basically did setting it up to our own database on Monday, where we used bcrypt and stored the username and password. So before we did Clerk, we did wire it up that way. That is a totally fine investment into your time. But it demos less well, right? Like it's more impressive to have more features than it is to have login. Because while login is obviously a complex flow, the regular person that you're demoing to won't understand what it takes to build a login system. So that is up to you to say, no, this is technically what I want to invest time into, so I'm going to build my own login system out. Or you can say, hey, I'm just going to leave login partially unfinished and instead choose to focus on search or multiple file uploads or more forms or whatever. That's totally up to you.
Alrighty. And then uh uh I'm not going to get too much into how to upload a file section, but this is more about database design. Um, I think I have it right now set to there's one file table.
Okay.
But I obviously have, so like you have either call it the patient or case. You can't have a patient without a case without a patient. So I guess it doesn't really matter for that. In there, you got the child's demographic information. You're linking from another guardian table, what service coordinator is assigned, what supervisor is assigned to them, and then all the files within the different sections that are going to be pulled off. Is it better to have all the files in one table as in like you got your service plan, you got your evaluation, you got your notes, you got your records, etc. Having all those broken into different tables, or all one table sectioned off by like a different tag, and then you're querying through all of them to pull
Yeah,
what's relevant for that
so
page.
um there are a couple things there that this is one of those situations where like there is a right answer, but it's dependent on the data that you're storing. So if every file you are uploading can only have one type, and every file that you upload has a patient or case ID associated with it and a user ID associated with it, but no other form fields, then it makes sense to put it all in one table. However, if the fields that are associated with each file type change based off of the type of file, it makes more sense to have them in separate tables.
Yeah, this is all going to be, I mean, for like, ideally, I'd want to do it and break it down by all those different forms and digitize them and like have the HTML form, but there's way too many forms for me to do that with to have it all be cohesive. So I'm going to keep all of it for in PDF right now. So we'll just upload a scanned version of the document for us. So they're all .pdf.
And as long as when they go to upload the file and they go, oh, I'm uploading a service plan right now, as long as additional form fields don't appear based off of whatever they picked, and it's just, oh, it's service plan, it's for this patient or case ID, and here is the PDF, and it's going to store my user ID associated with it because I'm the one who uploaded it, one table makes the most sense for that.
Okay, so if I put service plan in there, and since they're all run on 6-month service plans, I should have them spread into different tables. Because if I'll put it up there, and then I guess I could put in different form fields for the date range,
For the what?
for the date range of that service plan. For
Yeah,
what's
so like
active on there.
if every document has an active date range, then one table makes sense. But if other fields change based off of the type of file that you're uploading, then yes, you
Different
do want to
tables.
break it out into multiple tables.
Alrighty, not that it really matters. It's not like a whole lot. That's a
Yeah,
lot of work
and
that's
that's
there.
just because you're trying to avoid null values in your database, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but it's a bad thing when you're like, oh, this is only stored for this particular data type.
Right, I'm gonna have like null columns for no reason.
Correct. And that's what you're trying to avoid.
Yep. Okay.
Now, you could also say service plans are go into one table and all other file types go into this other, and that's also okay. Because in the other table, you would have an enum that lists out type of file, and it would just be an array of all of the file types except for service plan.
Gotcha. All right. Thank you.
Of course.
on a separate note, this is working on this project has made me want to take a few classes in EHR software.
Reminder, I'm giving you this class time back to ask questions. So if you are stuck, if you feel like you are spinning your wheels, if you feel like you are just here to show up and get attendance credit, that is not the point of tonight. So if you need help, feel free to ask for it either here or go ask for a breakout room and we can work on it together.
How difficult would it be
Very.
to, I'm assuming the answer is going to be very, or at least very tedious. Um, a lot of case management softwares are a kind of build your own. Kind of they give a lot of templates for things and then you kind of build what you want in there. For example, like the case system itself is not different, but how building different dashboards for like I guess stats and stuff and reports or build your own and potentially how data could be stored. How would it I could just attach variables to and
Yeah, the
pass
answer
in
to that is it obviously gets quite complicated. And so the easiest way or the suggestion that I would have with that is you kind of want to work your way backwards. So, generate out three different dashboards, right? And when I say generate, I mean like literally on paper, draw out what people would want to customize. So one thing that we have done on our remote patient monitoring software is that we have 30 different columns that show up in a table. And the contract requirements are kind of what we think is kind of stupidly strict in that by default you have to show all 30 columns. Well, when you show 30 columns, no one's scrolling left and right all day long just to see the information that they want. So the way that we got around that was we have customizable columns that, yes, by default, all 30 of them have to show. But what we have integrated into our solution is anytime they hide a column or rearrange the column or even change the width of the column, we save that preference in the database. And that way, every single time that they load their chart, they're getting or load the table, they're getting their dashboard that they have configured by just modifying the table to hide and show the information they want and in the order that they want it without breaking the contract requirement that all 30 fields have to be shown. So one way of going about that is saying, hey, we're going to give you an interface, but the interface is customizable enough, and we will save that data of how you customized it. And that's what we will consistently show you. So that's one approach to it. The other approach to it is, hey, we do have to support custom fields here in Onondaga County. We need to keep track of X, Y, and Z data on this form. And then that gets a little bit more complex because you have to set up a custom form. You have to keep track of what the data types are for that. It gets a little bit
right.
complicated to do
Like
that.
it feels at that point I'm making like a Google form app.
Correct. Yes. Which some CRMs or some database heavy applications do allow you to do. So it would require a heavier lift than what we are covering in the capstone. But technically it is just more of utilizing the database, basically.
Yeah, I'm looking at there's one that Onondaga County's getting or trying to get, and we called iCentral. And it looks like I can they're kind of doing that. I think they have like a I don't really know how they're doing it. I would assume that they have to, so you go in and you create in like a custom form, you build the form how you want it, and then using the variable that you use for like the label or whatever that gets passed into the back end, and that variable is used to make the key for the header.
Yes.
Okay. That makes sense. It's not too bad. It's about what I expected it to be.
Yeah, definitely doable, but a pretty significant investment. If you are joining class a little late, the attendance word is fan, F-A-N. By the end of class tonight, you should have an Express server up and running, a SQLized connection to your database, one table created, at least one row of data in that table, and data up from that table showing up in your front end. Terry.
Yeah, I'm re-looking at like the video, but I'm like missing the file. I'm missing the what's it called? Get ignore file?
The what file?
Hang on, let me type in the chat because I don't know how to pronounce it. Uh,
Oh, git ignore.
Yeah.
Um, that's just going to prevent your node modules from causing problems in when you add the repository. But if you want to create the git ignore file, you can. It's just a new file that you create with a period in the front of it. And then inside of the git ignore, you type in node underscore modules and save it. And then that's it. That's the only thing that's in there. You can request it all you want, Austin.
I feel like I have a lot of like clutter and I just don't know how to like
Nope, totally fine.
track that.
I am putting you in it right now. Helps if I'm unmuted. Good question that came up, and I want to go over these steps. Some people get overwhelmed with the amount of things they need to do and don't know where to start. Other people get overwhelmed because there is so much to do that they can't focus on one item. So if you are one of those people who needs to see the entire forest before they can focus on one tree, get the stuff out of your head. Write this stuff down. If you are someone who just needs one single starting point and needs to focus on just one tree, write one sentence down and then break that sentence down with all of the stuff that it takes to do that. So here's an example. If you have not started your backend yet, if you have your React project set up, if you cleared the last Capstone check-in, but you're going, I'm a week away from the next Capstone check-in, the sentence that you are trying to shoot for is, I need data read and created in my database that will show in my front end. How do we do that? Well, we got to create the database. That's number one. And this is why we are going through these steps. So we're going to go to Beekeeper and we're going to create database Capstone. Number two, we need to create the files for our backend API server. That's going to be creating the folder. That's going to be npm init-y. That's going to be creating index.js. That's going to be setting up our database.js. Then we've got to modify our index.js or server.js. So we've got to do our imports from Express. We've got to install cores and SQLize and all of those things. We have to create an endpoint to get our data, which is going to involve a model. And we also need to create a post endpoint to insert that data into our database. Now that we've got the back end done, we got to go to the front end and create a form if we don't have a form created. We've got to submit the data, which is going to make a fetch request to the post endpoint, which is going to send the data to the back end, which is going to save the data into the database, which is going to tell the back end to tell the front end that the data was saved. The front end is probably going to redirect you to another page. That page needs to do a use effect, needs to do a GET request to go get that information from the database, send it to the back end. The back end is going to send it back to the front end. The front end is going to get that data, set it into state. State is going to get mapped over in the return to show all of that information. That's a lot. So let's just go over those steps in the blog project. So when did we start full stacking the blog project? That was
Not sharing your screen if you're trying to.
no, I'm trying to find links quick enough and stalling. We started the blog project. Nope, that was 8/21, week 18, day 3. And if I remember correctly, we didn't start until after the break. So go to the week 18, day 3 video if you are someone who learns by going through the YouTube videos. If you are not someone who learns by going through the YouTube videos, then go over to the GitHub code. So go to week 18, day 3, which I also just pasted in the chat, and look at what files we created there. What did we set up in db.js? What models did we create? All of that kind of stuff. So we're going to do a quick overview of that code because I have a feeling that that there's more than one person struggling with how do we get our backend created. So what did we do in the backend? We created the folder. We npm init-y in that folder. We then create index.js. And we look in index.js and it imports cores, which means we have to install cores. It also uses we set up the server, we do a get, and we do a post request that is inserting and reading, creating and reading, and then we tell the server to listen. Okay. We also have our db.js set up. This one happens to have 3 models. We only need 1 model for Thursday's check-in, next Thursday's check-in. And then finally, we have to define that model with the different fields in it. That's everything for the back end. On the front end, we do set up 2 things. One, in the homepage, we do a use effect here that loads all of the posts in from the GET request that we put in the backend. We take that data, we set it into state, and then in state, we map over each one of those to show that information there. The other thing that we do is we make the new post file, which has a form with inputs. And when we submit that form using create post, we do a fetch post to the database and send in the information from the form. So the week 18 day 3 code has everything in it that we need to meet Thursday's capstone requirements. We create a post and we read a post, which involves setting up the backend and setting up the database. So if you are looking for the gold standard here of what do I need to meet for Thursday's check-in, week 18, day 3 is your go-to for that. So I put the code in GitHub. The code in the link to that is all numbered out. So you can either follow number by number there, or you can go to the YouTube video for week 18, day 3, and go through step by step getting that blog project set up. And if at any point you get stuck on one of those steps, I will be around after break for the next hour to help you through those steps. That's only if you don't have a backend set up already. If you have a backend set up already and you're, doing those steps and you get stuck somewhere, that's totally fine. But hopefully that is a more concrete starting point if you do not have a backend set up at this point. So go ahead and go on break, because taking breaks are important even when you're working yourself. Take a break, be back at 7:25, and I will stick around for the next hour in case any questions pop up.
My code?
I can see your code. Are you trying to make it so only signed in people can create posts?
That's a good question, because I was gonna do if you're not signed in, it'll make you as like anonymous and then have like a random number after anonymous. But I think I might go with the part like the sign, if like you need to get signed in.
Okay. So do you have my code up?
I have it on my Windows computer.
Okay.
The
So
C5 week 20, right?
Week 20, day 3, server.js.
Yep.
If you scroll all the way up to line 26,
Yep.
you see validate user token middleware.
Yeah.
That's what is running to make sure that the user is signed in via clerk.
Oh.
So 26 all the way down to 69 is everything that you did in class with Ryan Tuesday and Wednesday to make sure that the user is signed in before you can create a comment.
So should I just work on just the login first? Since I didn't really set up like clerk on this yet. So should I just work on that first and then focus on the comment later?
You could do either. I would encourage you to get comments working without a signed in user first, and then go back and get clerk working second.
Oh,
So
sorry.
in
One last thing. One last thing.
yeah,
So I have like the database server, whatever. How does it know where to post that? Like with like the server, like.
how does the code know what database server to use?
Mm-hmm.
If you give me remote. So this is good. This is working without needing clerk. If you needed clerk to work, you could add in the validate user token middleware here. But that's what I'm recommend skipping. Comment knows what database to use because it's coming from db.js. db.js is connecting to that database right there.
Oh, okay.
So you're good to go?
Yeah, for now.
Okay.
Well, I got another one. On server.js on line 165 and the comments, is that I guess like the key for what's inside of the comment .js? Like for example, like we had to set up like all the different key like ID and user comment and comment date. Is that, do I need to like put those inside of that right there?
Yeah, so the 166, we don't want to get all comments in the database. All we want to do is get the comments for the specific post we are on. So you can ignore 167. You can skip that line altogether because that's the comment replies. But for the comments themselves, we don't want to get all comments in the database. We only want to get the comments where the post is, the post that we're on in the front end. So the 166 lines up with the line 20 on read.js. I think. Hold on. Let me confirm that. Backend server 160. Oh no, sorry. That's in the body. So 166 lines up with 54 in read.js.
With the set post. Oh, okay.
54 in read.js should be post ID : ID.
I see, with the response. Yeah, I see it. I see it.
Yep. So we're sending in data, right? We're sending in who created it, what did they type in, and what posts are they trying to create a comment on. And we're sending that in to 161 in server.js and so go create the comment. And then after the comment is created on 162, send back all of the comments, but only where the comment was created on the post that we're looking at. So basically, the body here is going to line up with any body here. So we say it's a post which lines up with this post. This comment is connected to this comment. The rec is going to line up with the body over here, create the entire rec.body, which means all of this stuff here. Then take the post ID from here and use that from the rec body post ID to send back all of the comments that line up with the ID of the post. Does that help?
Yeah, it definitely did help. So with read, that's where like if the user will click like submit, it would like post on that page.
Correct, because the post comment here is tied to the form on submit down here. And so what's going to happen is once the comment is created and we send back all of the comments in the post, for that post, I should say, we then take the comments and set it into post. Post now updates the post up here. And because post is in state, it's going to go through and look at all of the post comments, map over them, and show the new comment content.
Ah, I got it now. Thanks, Max.
And we will be going over all of that on Tuesday in case anyone else is panicking or that flow.
Also, how did you split like the code what you did? How you had the front end on this side and then have the back end on this side? Or is that two separate tabs?
Two separate windows.
Okay.
Who is L?
EI,
Who is EI?
early intervention.
Oh, got it.
There's
That I
a
cannot answer for you.
The new software that's coming in October is called EI Hub, but they've canceled it. It's been coming for like 5 years. And they keep just pushing the date out every time by 6 months. So there's a sign on my desk that just said EI Hub's coming tomorrow. And people will come by who aren't from EI, like construction teams or whatever, that are like doing repairs or something, and they'll be like, "What is L Hub?"
Dumb question. With read.js line 45 with the fetch with the API URL, do we need to just paste the URL from the database? That would
Just use http://localhost:3001/.
Alrighty. Should I workflow the entire process out first and just be kind of like general with something, or should I be as specific as possible with like where should I make it process centric or should I make it focused around the project? Like and how it's technically working in the workflow for there. Like for example, if I was doing it process wise, is the case there's a referral that's made. The next part is the case already in the system? If not, go create a new case, and then after you do that, we're going to make a new referral in that case so that we have it in there, store the PDF in there. And then from there, we got to look at, is it validated by a supervisor? Has it been assigned to a service coordinator, etc. Now, if it was project centric, that last step would be, send it to the inbox for the supervisor, and then send it back to the inbox for clerical, and then send it to the service coordinator's inbox to once it gets assigned to them, and populate notifications and stuff. Like, how granular should I get with that, or should I do both?
Hard for me to answer that. Inbox based workflows are challenging, right? Like they bring their own set of challenges, as does process flow, right? So I think the answer is probably both, but it's up to you to decide which you want to focus on. I don't know that it makes sense to tackle both at the same time though, right? So I would think of that as, what's the user experience like and what do I want to demo? Because if the answer is I want to demo the fact that this case came in and it got created in the database properly and the file got stored, and I can show that if I need to go back and look at that referral, that's a completely fine demo flow. The other thing that you could show is, hey, this file got uploaded and it went into this inbox, and then you clicked on this approve button, and then it went into this other person's inbox and they clicked the next button, and then it ended up here, right? Either one of those demo flows is fine, but I would focus on one or the other. I wouldn't necessarily focus on both, because there's a lot of, well, I got to log out of this user type and then go log into this other user type for them to even see that. Then I got to log out again and log back into this other user type, and they move that step forward. So it will be much harder to demo multiple user roles, at which point I would go for the other demo type, but both are kind of important. So it's up to you to decide which one you want to include.
Yeah, that was kind of the issue, is like I'm getting very, very far away from what it would actually look like implemented because there's no user roles. Yeah, maybe I'll just modify the inbox system a little bit, or just not include that.
Could work.
Yeah, because there's
Yeah.
really no way for me to do that without the log in, log out, different user. Well, I mean,
Well, what you could do is make the
assign all
inbox
roles.
role focused instead of making the inbox signed in user role focused. So you could just put like a dummy demo drop down in that says view inbox of type, and then that you pick the user role, and that's the inbox that shows up. Instead of it being assigned to a specific user ID, it's going to pull all the messages that are assigned to that user role type.
I guess that, yeah, I guess that works too. So I can do different views. How it works now in New York State early intervention system is you can assign multiple roles to a user. The new system, you can't. I mean, you can have multiple roles. You can't access everything at the same time. You need to like sign out of that role, so to speak.
Makes sense.
Hey Max, I need help with the plugin. I gave him my all, and yeah, I'm stuck.
Go ahead, share screen.
Don't know why he's doing this.
That needs to be between line 32 and line 33. Both, yeah, both of those lines. And then one above that. So between no,
Oh, yeah.
between 31 and 32 now. Yep. There you go. And then comment is not defined on 22. That slash comment needs to be inside the backtick without spaces. And that should do it.
Thanks. Does the submit button need to be inside of the text
Inside
area?
the form. Inside the form. Having a good time over there, Terry?
No, because right after I hit submit, it gave me undefined reading value.
Oh, well, looks like we're at the end of class. Have a good night, everyone. Okay, bye. Go ahead, share screen. Or unless you want to work through it and then you definitely can. Okay.
It's giving me this.
Undefined reading value. Okay, so that is going to be in your submit function. Your form on submit function on the front end. So where whatever the on submit function is above in your HTML. Okay, comment post. So it's looking for a ID called user comment right here, right? We're trying to get the user comment here. And so that means that in your input, the ID needs to be added of user comment, not comment dash input. Give that a try.
Let's see. Oh. Failed to fetch.
Okay, so that's now a problem with your backend over here. And it's saying it tried to create the user comment high. So let's take a look at your server.js. Create using the rec.body. Pass in the user comment. What is probably null is the comment date. So let's go ahead and set that as a default value as data types now. I think that should do it. Go ahead and submit the form again. And if that doesn't work, I may have to do it a separate way. No, it didn't like that. Default value.
Failed to fetch.
Oh, well, it did set that in. ID is null, but it should be null because primary key true auto increment is true. Oh, comment login ID cannot be null. So because we aren't having logged in users yet, this shouldn't be there. So we're going to just comment that out for now. And then in here, we're going to tell it to alter true. So it knows to make that change. And looks like it did. So now we can take that out. And go back to comment here and save. Okay, now try and submit it.
No, I keep getting a failed to fetch. I don't.
Okay, now different problem though. Look in the back end. It says comment is not defined. That is because you use a capital C and in your files you use lowercase. So try now. Okay, now you've got a different error. Where parameter comment ID has undefined value. That is because I don't think it should be comment ID. I think it should be. Oh, wait, your model's off. Your model. Yeah, it needs a post ID in here. Data types. Integer. And let's make sure that we send that in on the front end. No, we aren't, right? Because your comment gets stored on does it get stored in general or it gets stored on a specific character ID, right?
Yeah, specific character ID.
So do you have that character created in the database yet?
No.
So we're putting the chicken before the egg here, or the cart before the horse. That's the idiom I was trying to remember, right? We can't store a comment about a particular character until we have all the characters loaded in the database first.
Okay.
So,
yeah.
or fighter, I should say, right? So if you do fighter ID here, and then you say, hey, we're going to fake it and say the fighter ID that you've got set up here is going to just be 1. What we can do is in your backend say const existing fighter equals fighter dot find 1 and await that. And if there's not an existing fighter, create one, but you're going to have to load in all of this data about that. So for each one of these, you are going to want to update that in here. Does that make sense? So you're
Yeah.
going to do, you're going to leave ID blank, but then in here, you're going to want to do name is, Scorpion. Spell that wrong, spell it wrong every time. And then you're going to want to do origin. And then, keep going and fill in all of those out.
Oh, okay.
And that way you'll create your fighter, right? And then when you do the comment on them, we put this in, which will kind of fake out the database because over here we hard coded the fighter ID to 1. So when we do the blog post tomorrow, you'll see how we kind of, or I'm sorry, on Tuesday, you'll see how when we make a comment, it's not just a comment, it's, hey, you clicked on this post to read about it, grab that ID, throw that ID into the database. But for now, this should be a good way to fake it and get that data loaded in.
Okay.
Okay, 10-minute warning on any questions. If you have questions, now is your time to ask them. Okay, final questions for the evening.
Yeah, fighter dot find one is not a function.
Share your screen. I may have grabbed the wrong import. Quest remote. Fighter should be coming from fighter. That comes from here. Not here. And now fighter is not exported because in DB, you don't have the fighter model set up. So you'd say const fighter equals fighter model, which gets access to the DB. We're gonna export our fighter, which is gonna come from our fighter, which is going to be our fighter model from fighter. Save fighter. And we're gonna grab fighter, and then we're gonna use fighter. And now it is crashing because, and I think this one is gonna be on you. No, fighters does not exist. Fighter.create. Fighters does not exist. Fighter. Do we need an alter true? I don't think so. We are over time for class tonight, so you guys are welcome to head out. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in Slack. There are one-on-ones available tomorrow and over the weekend, so feel free to schedule one of those if you need any more assistance. Otherwise, I will see you guys on Tuesday. And Terry, I may have to run here. It doesn't look like it's creating the fighter table. Oh, you know what it is? The table has to get created before we can use it. So if we comment this out, it runs, it creates the table, and now we can do our insert. And it is mad because origin cannot be null, and it's because origin is spelled right here, but it is not spelled right in here. So we save, we alter, we comment this out so that it can do the table alter, and it's missing column. You know what? We're just gonna delete this altogether. And then restart. Oh. comment all of that out. Now it will recreate the table with origin spelled correctly. So we can comment all of that in. Now it should create our first fighter, which now has all the data in there. And now when we do the comment, because fighter ID is stored in with the fighter ID 1 there, go ahead and create the comment and see if it works. All right, app crashed.
Failed to fetch.
Column ID of relation comments does not exist. All right, if this doesn't fix it, I do have to run. We do our alter true and then refresh over here. That got our fighter ID in there. So let's take that back out. Go ahead and add your comment back in.
No, it doesn't. And then again, our 101 is really tomorrow. So
Now you've got a problem where parameter key is undefined. So this one you do in up here. You said instead of doing it by comment ID, do it by fighter ID, where the fighter ID is the rec.body.fighter ID. All right, give that a try.
oh, we didn't need to do the alt true thing.
No, because we're not modifying a column there. We only need to do the alter true for changing a column.
Oh, well, at least it ain't crashing, but
Well, now if we check in your terminal, no error message. And if we look in the comments and refresh, now your comments are coming through.
yeah.
So there's got to be something wrong in your read flow, but you're getting the entire create flow working. With all that said, I do have to run, so I will see you guys on Tuesday or over the weekend if you have one-on-one schedule.
All right.
See you guys.